Hello, aspiring storytellers. Anna Sabramowicz here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about ways that you can really change the way you work so that you can get more creative work done and actually publish those projects that you've been, putting aside for weeks and weeks because you're overwhelmed with work. So if you're new to this channel and you're new to this podcast, if you're listening on the podcast, my name is Anna Sabramowicz, and I help e-learning and instructional designers craft and launch interactive stories. People that usually work with me are trying to be change agents at work. They're trying to launch creative ideas, or they just want to do more of that kind of work. But it's pretty difficult to do that when you're like the only person in the department. I'll talk to people and they're like, yeah, I'm like the only person at my company that does training and I publish the e-learning as well. So they're like a one-person stop shop, and that's pretty intimidating. And then if you're trying to actually launch new ideas, well, you're basically overwhelmed. You're trying to keep up with the workload while at the same time then also trying to be creative. So I want to offer you a strategy that will actually help you manage that a bit better. And if anything, it will also, if you can get this started, and I've seen these strategies started for people at their organization, you can actually change the culture of your workplace and for it to become a place where people actually respect creative time. Obviously, when you're working on 15 projects and you're trying to keep all these plates up in the air, creativity is kind of hard to come by, and you catch it in these little bursts. But the other thing that happens is because you're making progress on like 15 things at the same time, you're just moving the needle like this much on every single piece. In this video, what I'm going to talk about is the strategies that I used to help me. And I discovered this because out of desperation, this strategy. So what happened is, years ago, I was working for this course development company, and I was stressed out as heck. And I was seeing all these people around me who were also, like, it was a big team, and they were also managing all these course projects. And I thought, man, like, what are they doing? How come I feel like I'm drowning? And the other thing is, I was also remote, so I felt like I had to kind of compensate. So I took on I said yes to a lot of things. And also there was an expectation there to say yes. Even if you said no, you later ended up saying yes. You get me? Have you been in this situation? And so what happened is, I'm listening to this book on audio while I'm like having a walk one day. And the person in the audio said, yeah, if you're trying to be productive and creative at the same time, you really can't have more than like 4 or 5 projects. And I was like, 4 or 5 projects? I'm working on 11, plus I have like 4 pet projects. No wonder I'm stressed out. But then the other thing that it drove me to is this super awesome article. And the article was on the maker versus manager. One of the things that really frustrated me is that I saw possibilities and I saw ways that things could be improved, but I never had the chance to step back and think on how to maybe do less, but more strategically. I was just treading water, and it's just destroys you. So I thought, I got to fix this. And so this article came up, and then I really started implementing it. And here's how it works, the idea, how it works in a nutshell. By the way, if you're enjoying this content and you're finding these ideas about how to manage your time better so you can be more creative with your interactive stories or any kind of creative projects, really in L&D, make sure you like and subscribe, because then you're showing me that you're enjoying the content, and also it helps out the channel. All right. So there's 2 mindsets that we are in when we're at work, or 2 kinds of modes. One is the maker, and the other one is the manager. And when you're the manager, in the manager mindset, and I'm totally paraphrasing here, what happens is you are in the person who's like managing employees, managing assets, going to meetings. You're not doing any kind of like, not to say that managers don't do deep creative work, but maybe they would actually benefit from this if they applied this. But when you're in that zone, you're basically executing tasks to keep everything flowing and running. Now, then there's the maker mode. And the maker mode is when you have dedicated chunks of time, undisturbed, uninterrupted, to think and execute on a project. creative project. Most organizations function on manager time for everybody. They just think that it's okay for you to put like meetings all over the place and disturb people and come up to their desk. Hey, are you working? When every time you get disturbed, it takes you another 20 minutes to get back into the task, to really get into that deep zone. And for some of you, I'll be talking about this and you'll be like, I don't even know what you're talking about, because you're so used to just getting distracted. I remember coming into work when I worked in the corporate office, physical office. I'd come to work, and in the morning is when you really have this really great freshness and focus. So I'd sit down at my desk at 9 o'clock, and by 10:15, 3 people would come to my desk and be like, hey, you want a donut? Want to go grab a donut? And there was a point where I started saying no, because I realized that my best work was done when everybody was gone off on their little coffee break, and I could just focus to do my work. And I got so much work done in that morning shot. But that was by fluke. Most times I'd go for the coffee break, because why not? You want to hang out with your friends, right? So here's how to implement this. You're probably thinking, okay, so you give me some general idea about, managers and makers. Here's how to implement this. For some of you, this will be scary. It was scary for me when I implemented it, but it worked. Now, in order to be able to make progress on a project, and it's crazy how much progress you can make when you dedicate an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I know that sounds scary, but 3 hours on a project in a dedicated chunk, you make mega momentum. It's insane. And especially when you're working on creative tasks, you gotta have time to really go deep. You have to. When I coach my interactive storytelling students, one of the things we talk about is not only that you need to have chunks of dedicated time to really think and go through maybe the outline, or put on a different kind of brain. There's different hats that you need to wear when you're designing an interactive story. But also during that time, to constrain yourself around the task that you're going to achieve and that you're going to focus on. Because you can still have focus time or creative time and then still be all over the place looking at stuff that isn't moving the needle. And this happens a lot. So here's how to do it. What you're going to do is carve out time for yourself to work on the project, whether that is, I suggest the mornings. I think mornings are best. Unless you're a night owl, then do it at night if you have that flexibility. But pick a time that works best for you for creative time and chunk it out in your calendar as busy time. And then what I suggest is, because nobody works in isolation, is communicate this strategy to other people and say that, listen, I need to make some serious momentum on some projects, and these are the days that I've designated to make that momentum. Please do not disturb me. But also, I wanted to suggest that we also meet in the late afternoon for our meetings, or we have designated 2 afternoons a week for meetings alone, and that's it. Because I was also working with developers and creatives at this organization, what happened is when I suggested that, they were like, yeah, I'd love that. Undisturbed morning to get my work done. And then we could actually, in the afternoon when I'm just, I had a bit of a food coma, then yeah, we can talk about some decisions, some meetings, and, have some discussion. But in the morning when I'm fresh, I would get so much more work done if I could just have a dedicated time to just plow through and be in the zone. And I was like, okay, cool. Other people are enjoying this too. So what happened is I dedicated time in the mornings. And then what happened is I made time available in the afternoons of certain days for meetings. Guess what happens? People adjust. They'll be like, oh, this is the time that's available. Regardless, even if you're running a haphazard day, people will still have to find a spot that's available. Well, now you just have that spot as set, right? The other thing you have to watch out for is that sometimes people think that having a dedicated hour and then a meeting and a dedicated hour is going to produce the same result, and it is not. If you are, and you have to think about this not only for yourself, but the people that you're collaborating with, because I collaborate with creatives. The students that I work with in our interactive storytelling program, they collaborate with with illustrators all the time. They collaborate with other developers. And so you have to think about, am I messing up that person's time by being demanding to talk to them like 9 a.m. in the morning when maybe it's their creative time? Like, you got to think about this stuff, right? That chunk is to be undisturbed, because if you have a meeting coming up, you're going to worry about getting lost in your project and missing the meeting or being late for the meeting. And then after the meeting, like I said, you got to get 20 minutes. So you're not getting the time. You're not getting the impact, the depth. If you split it up, if you go, oh, I'm going to do an hour chunk here, it doesn't work the same way. You can try it, but it doesn't work the same way. So the other thing I would suggest is see, and this has worked, is what about saying, hey, how can we make every single meeting that we have, can we cut it in half? I know some people do this whole meeting thing where it's like, can we be creative even with your stakeholders? Can we just meet every week? And I'm like, about what? Like, there's got to be a reason. The check-ins, especially for somebody who is a freelancer or who is a consultant, the check-ins, they don't need to be that long. We don't need to bookmark an hour every single week unless there's actually decisions to be made. And if you're working with me, then we're going to have to make decisions, but it won't take an hour. It will probably take half. So see what you can do with making the meetings half as long. Maybe you can do something instead of 30 minutes. What can we get done in 15 minutes as far as decisions making and walking away with some great ideas? Let's see what the constraints can add for us. What's important is that you get that dedicated time for yourself, because you can't produce and think about big picture strategy and really reflect on things when you are constantly bombarded by disruptions, or when you've crafted basically a calendar for yourself that represents kind of like a school calendar where every hour you change, ding, ding, there's a bell and things change. That's not how reality works. That's not how our brains work. So you have to cultivate this time. Turn the phone off. Not only turn the phone off or put it on, it's okay. Nobody's going to miss you for 45 minutes or an hour, but put that phone out of sight so that you don't want to look at it. Make it be the reward you get after working and persisting on something for 45 minutes. A lot of us, like, after we get stuck, I had this bad habit where if I'd get a little bit stuck on something, my first instinct was to open up a tab for social media or pick up my phone. It's like this weirdness, right? But then I learned that if I persisted, the amount of work and the thinking that I would get done, the breakthroughs I had were momentous. And the progress I could make on a single project in a single morning, amazing. Like, you feel like you're sacrificing other things. That's good. That's what it takes. Sacrifice. But in the process, though, I was making major strides on things that were priority, and that felt amazing. So the other thing I wanted to mention, which is that idea of when you have dedicated time, you have to be very strict with what you're trying to accomplish and the kind of almost the brain that you're coming in with. So when I work with my storytelling students, what happens is sometimes they'll get into the software and they have a prototype in there and they'll be like, okay, well, I can tweak this and I can do that, and then I can tweak this word. And I say, no. You can't do that, because it'll feel like you're having no momentum because you're tweaking everything 1%. What you need to do is go all in and have a certain kind of hat on. It'll actually make you more efficient. One of the things you might be working on is in your interactive story, you're working on the scenario questions. And I'll say, dedicate that morning to just work on the way the options. Just that. Put yourself in that mindset. And then when you're done, don't be a tyrant to yourself. Reward yourself. Say, look, I focused and I got all of these scenarios written up, and I did it. I told myself what to do and I followed through on it. And that's how it should work. And sometimes really you got, especially in the beginning, when you're beginning this process, make the win a small thing that you actually focus on, saying, I'm going to get this slide done, or I'm going to get the introduction done, or I'm going to put all of the characters in. One thing at a time. Focus on one thing at a time, and then execute on it solidly in that hour or 2 or 3. And the momentum, it'll be epic. Now, if this process really resonated with you and you're like, oh man, that's really cool, that optimization, that feeling of momentum, creativity that really resonates with you, and you want to do an interactive story, I'd love to talk to you. Underneath the video in the description, or if you're listening to the podcast, there'll be a link to book a call basically with me. And one of the things we talk about, if you qualify for a program, is, what is it that you're struggling with, and maybe ways that we can help you overcome those things. But also, what are some creative projects that you've been trying to, storytelling projects that you've been trying to get out, but there's been things that have been holding you back. And maybe some of those things are things that I can actually help you with, and the other coaches in the program. So if that sounds intriguing, do yourself a favor, jump on that call. Let's have a conversation. If it's a fit, then it's a wonderful way for you to start off the rest of the month. All right. Okay. So have a wonderful rest of the day. And I hope you found this valuable. If you did, you make sure you hit that like button, subscribe. There'll be more value coming your way soon. All right. Take care. Bye.